Hello, and welcome to This Week in Hospitality Marketing, live show number 574. I am your host, Lauren Gray. Thank you so much for joining us this last day of July 2026. Deep into the heat of everything. Woo, nothing but news all the time. Heat domes, and the unfortunate, I wouldn't say tragedy unfolding, just sadness unfolding when it comes to the fires in Europe, through Spain and France. Not to mention there are fires elsewhere, but those are the very large news gathering ones. In the US, they're very prevalent. And of course, in Canada, my goodness, the fires are just huge. I mean, we've had the smoke and so forth from all of them. And they are around the world, depending upon the seasonality of them. They're happening elsewhere. So nature taking its course as to how it adapts to what we've been doing to it. So anyway, with that heat, with that summer travel, we are in the midst of summer travel, the peak of it. There are some areas like ours that school's just now coming back, Southwest Florida. And of course, alters and ebbs and flows the demand of travel. But what reason to referencing, other than the here now of it being July 31st, is the context of how we search, the context of travel, the modalities of how we discover what it is we want to adventure to, have been going under some of the most fundamental shifts of this past year compared to, I would say, comparable to when the internet first began rolling out and this whole new world of the ability to discover came into play in the early 2000s. I remember very well from that period when I was running hotels in the Keys that the internet was a bit of a novelty. It was still, not everybody even had access to some of the stuff. Not everybody had a computer, and certainly phones at that time really didn't work in that way. They were phones. And so the only real option you had, unless you're in the business acumen, was to get an IBM PC and get into dial-up modem. And there was some progressive ability to discover. And of course, we can get all nostalgic about having books that gave you addresses of websites and so forth. But Google was already in play. Google was already working well. It was getting better. It was beginning to become into its own. And at the time, online internet was a fractional component of contribution to our hotels, 3-4%. Other places, depending upon the type, 6 or 7%. It was just a new burgeoning involvement with the discovering usage. And a lot of it had to depend on the content that places had out there. And at that time, the content was usually just awareness brochurish in its way. Here's a website for the hotel. And there you can get a phone number, which in itself was a convenience compared to having to find other ways to get phone numbers of hotels in other places that you didn't live or you wanted to visit. And it had maybe some pictures, but there was no booking engine directly component to it. You didn't have the opportunity to do that. You still had to go out and reach to the property and see if you could make a reservation and so forth that way. So it was this whole transitional process. And that seems very similar to the way it is now on how people are reinventing their ways of discovering their travel adventures. Unfortunately, we are still acting in the world of how people have historically been using the internet to discover their adventures. So today's topic, long intro, statement of topic, timing while creating the right content for the right AI engagement. Now, in our current and historical perspective, when it comes to future interest, long-term future interest, long-term planning, we really didn't find a lot of data. If you were to go online, and it's still the case, unfortunately, which is why we're having the show today. If you were to go in and say, I want to look for this time next year for the same place. I think this is great. I want to do it again next year. I want to repeat this travel again. Thoroughly enjoyed coming here. Want to come back here again. So not much research, just affirmation and looking to go over and make that happen. If you go online, you'll find the deals and specials that you took advantage of this year. There's nothing next year. There's no real anything. If you look at rates, they're rack rates. There's been no adaptation to offers, incentives. I say this in generalities always. There's always the outliers, the exceptions to this. But in general, you'll find that there's been no real clear strategy. Really good revenue managers might at this point, as a perennial evergreen offer expires, reconstitute it to come on next year. But they sometimes will stop saying, well, first let's just let rack sit out there for anybody that wants to book. They're going to book our higher rate, knowing that as time gets closer and you make these offers more available or start the offers back up, they're just going to buy down into the offer that you're offering. So it's a little not self-fulfilling. It also dampens any future demand forecasting, because you're literally telling people, unless you tell me you're willing to pay for full price, I'm not giving you any offer. So you go out and you look, there's none of these special offers that you've taken advantage of this year out there presently running for next year. The rates are pretty much rack. Very few exceptions to that. Maybe some standard deductions are still in play because you add infinitum, your AAA or your AARP discounts. But that's it. You go to the event calendar, nothing. You go to what's content of things to do specifically for next year, like there might be a different festival or a different event or different activities or anything next year that you actually know about. Nothing. So it makes it very... you have to really want to book. You really have to want to go over and complete your interest now for that far out. There's a lot of runway between there and now. And where I was passionate about wanting to come back to the location, I have 12 months to think about it. I have 12 months to be distracted. And I have 12 months of other people trying to tell me what I should consider doing instead. And you've given them no reason to stay loyal to the idea of wanting to come back to you. In our search discoveries, this is pretty standard. As a matter of fact, it's more standard. You'd be hard pressed to find any initiative from a property more than 6 months away from the date that they're looking. Very hard. The only exceptions I would say to that would be pretty standard to say is that there's unique special events. Like we just had the World Cup and of course Super Bowl things if it's in your market and so forth. You put fences, you should be putting fences around those so not to be exploited from low rated early pickups that you then have to fight against. Other than that, there's very little. If you go to the page that was very successful for you this summer, that said Summer Blast, Summer Special, blah, 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 and you did great with this campaign, and you see that the campaign stops at the date that you've selected, July 31st or August 30th or whatever. August 31st. I had to go there and do a little song in my head. Remember that's 33 days in August. Duh. Then it just dies. And if you're sloppy, the page is there with old information, old dates, old offers that don't work, links that break because the code no longer works because it expired. And it's frustrating from the user side because it's, oh, wow, they have a summer special. I was thinking about summer next year. Oh, yeah, it's not applicable because the date range doesn't include it. With AI and our need to be present in that geo-discovery area, its influence on us. We're still struggling with its direct value relationship, understanding or defining it or tracking and quantifying it. But we do know it has an influence, similar to what social had as an influence and still does on the decision-making process that our users have. AI is ever vigilant on being able to garner and gather data as it needs it. And more people are beginning to use the tool in the discovery aspect. Like I said, this time reminds me of early 2000s in the expansion of how we discover, travel, and search. I want to pause the thought process of what I've been rambling about to this point to then go towards influencing factors right now. Economies as they are, the world as we are, not to get political or financial about that, we are seeing that there is a K economy. We've talked about that on the show a few times now. Those that have money are still going to continue to do what it is that they have money, but the reason why they have money is they also look for bargains and deals where they don't have to pay as much for the same product. We all do that, but they have more leverage. And for anybody below that level of flexibility, you have decisions to make, priorities to make. A lot of the summer traffic has been assigned to the fact that people are being resilient, and in spite of it not being financially secure for them to do, they're extending their finances to make sure that they get to enjoy summer the way they anticipated or planned. Part of it might be a recall from retail demand towards the end of the year. Who knows? it's been a very interesting ebb and flow of the economies that we're dealing with. But all said and saying, people are realizing that they can learn more and plan more to be more frugal in their future plans. They're building ways of understanding how they can look farther ahead and plan farther ahead for what is now a more substantive financial choice of travel, so that they can optimize what that plan is. Now, we know we have the short-term booking windows. We've trained our guests to look until the last minute, knowing that there are properties that will lower their rate because they want to get the last scrap of demand to market. But more and more discovery and more research is being tethered to the use of AI, where they get to ask complex questions or persistently refined questions towards a particular interest. And they don't have to squander as much time looking at all the SERP results, search engine result pages, where they go into the links and see that the data is dead-ended, the offers are no longer there, there's no special rates for those dates, there's no events listed for those times, whatever have you. Rather than wasting their time dead-ending all of this research that they're doing, they can quickly and decisively, with AI, ask that question. What is there to do in Destination X that's coming up for July 1st through 31st of 2027? And they're going to get information back. And what's going to come back is only the information, because again, as we've discussed many times, AI doesn't categorize all the data. It only looks for the data that's relevant to the query. And it's going to come back with what it finds. If it doesn't find anything that you're on, it's only going to show what it discovered. And it might be your competitor. It might be a destination that says, well, Destination X doesn't have any current plans of this as is, but in Destination Y, similar to or nearby, because you were asking about topically driven interest, they have this festival that you like, or as it knows and you better and better, it begins to offer you other things. Remember, it wants to be that helpful assistant. It wants to be that, well, I look for what you were looking for, and based on what I know about you, there's nothing there, but there's this, which is close to what you were looking for anyway. It's going to start doing that. And you right now have no content out there for that. Studios website supporters will go over and kill their pages that are seasonal or event driven. They'll just dark them out. They'll take them off the navigation, out of the marketing strategy, the rate codes for the marketing of it. They'll take it out of their navigation. So they're what's called orphan pages. They sit out there. They're still known by Google as they crawl, or Bing. But there's no real definitive traffic. There's no discoverable traffic because there's no navigation to it unless it's discovered as a bookmark and or directly referenced to the page because of historical content that was indexed. Meaning in a SERP page, it referred to the link. Somebody went to that link and saw the page. But the page itself isn't in the navigation of your site for people to discover. Saying, hey, what? Oh, they're talking about July 27. Let me see what that's about. There's no navigation quality to it. I'm saying that's not a poor, that is a poor decision to make. One is, and I'll give you a very long time ago example of it. This was in Ontario, Canada. We had a hotel. And there's a wonderful Tulip Festival up there. And this goes back many years. This goes back into the early 2000s, actually. And there's an amazing Tulip Festival that happens in Quebec, in Ontario. And there was no website for it. And the city had some information about it, but it was part of a to-do list or FAQ or just general referencing, but there was no real depth of data to it. And the hotel we had there, we decided we were going to expand that because we wanted to have an offer related to it. So we took the time to really flesh out a lot of content, not just the hours of operation, but the granular detail of data, where the flowers come from, what's the history behind it, what's the best days, don't miss these vendors, get your beaver tail, all that kind of fun stuff to it. And had that as our page. And it was very successful first year. And then we started noticing more and more organic value to the page. Eventually, the page becomes the most dominant, authoritative page for the event, to the point where the event actually asked to participate with our page because they, as much as they're trying to build up their awareness that they came late to the race, we still dominated the value. We still had the dominant traffic for it, and they needed to be a part of our page As you know, we didn't want to take away from this. We wanted their event to be successful, but we had the dominant organic value. And we kept that page in perpetuity persistently. As soon as that year's event was over, we made sure that everything was ready for the next event to go right into it, just as transition right next forward. Any new things to look forward to next year were included in right away. And that built into an amazing, persistent year in, year out value relationship for that event, for that hotel. When you looked, even if you finished it, or maybe you were a month after the event, or you just heard about it a month after the event, and you said, man, that'd be fun next year. You go, there's information about it next year. And offers were already built for next year. And we had early bookings for it. We sold out for that event, for that hotel, months ahead of the event itself, while other hotels in the market were still looking for business. That's the power of having that timing going forward. We now have that same opportunity with AI. As people, as I said, given current economic circumstances, begin to look farther forward in their planning discovery, doesn't mean that they're booking farther forward immediately. It just means that they're researching farther forward. You need to be in that consideration phase. You need to be in that discovery phase so that they can know that you are there and aware of what it is that you're asking and offering for. The ability to have content so that AI can discover it for the queries that are related to it. Not to mention the SEO value of it, of being properly indexed, that it stays alive, stays in your navigation. And you may push back and say, well, why do I want to show July 27 stuff in my navigation? It already is cluttered enough with everything for what's coming up in September 26 and then October 26. You're absolutely right. It's not featureability. We're not saying you need to keep it front and center as if it was today. What we're saying is that, when I say we, I'm saying, is that it needs to be present in your navigation persistently. It needs to be immediately and perpetually kept up. And as you build this broader and broader content base, not just for my example of a year from now, but for everything in between, people are beginning to look farther out for their own reasons, and they're trying to discover it in ways that we don't plan for in our navigation. People don't necessarily start with the question, I wonder what Hotel X is offering as a special for the event in Destination Z in July 12th of 2027. Very few queries come off that way. They're not looking for the end goal of, well, let me book that. I found out they had a special. That was a great deal. No. It'll start in their own creative way of why they're interested, why the dates are interesting, why the destination is under consideration, what the event is that's relative to their interest, and whether or not there's any hotels that are somehow tethered to it or that have offers specific to it. Because AI will bring that into the conversation for them. It's like, you were interested in this event in Destination Z, and this hotel, has an offer for it right now. Whoa! The value of that in the world of AI now, the timing capability of that being far enough forward, is incredibly useful. Plus, from an SEO perspective, incredibly authoritative building for what you have as content. Because even the CVBs, TDCs, Chamber of Commerce's still do this only what's relevant in front of you, and the rest of it gets backlogged. They might put it into a legacy page of historical events. Like, they have this annual event somewhere, and as soon as that annual event passes, they take the content off of primary online. They oftentimes make the silliest of mistakes, and they take the page down and hijack the content over to an FAQ or a historical calendar, killing all of their SEO that they had related to it, and then try to put the pieces of Humpty Dumpty back together again for the next year's event when it comes close enough for them to reconstitute what they're doing for that event. So we see lots of bad actors in this space of how they handle their content and what do they do with it in the timing sequence of what's going on. And a lot of pushback you'll get from people that control the ebb and flow of the money that you get to use in these campaigns might say, well, why are we investing any expense relationship to this when it is so far out and it has no direct relevance on our current budgetary goals? You're a little short-sighted looking at your shoes as you run a marathon race. They don't realize that this is progressive exposure, value, relationship building environment. Along with all of this content that you're keeping in perpetuity and keeping advanced far enough for you, you're pushing the bubble farther and further of you as you move forward in time, is also the progression of your engagement from what channel with what content. Because once the event has happened and passed, you can look forensically back at all of the timings that happened on all of the channels and all of the engagements. And you can and should have a relevant timeline as to how all this worked out for you. How soon did people start engaging with your social content? How soon did they get interested in what was happening, or interested in those date ranges? For what reason? And the critical question to ask yourself: was I there when that happened, or did that happen before I joined the conversation? Did it happen as soon as I started the conversation, or did I join the conversation that was already in progress? These are questions you have to answer, because then the next version of it would be: we should start earlier. We should get earlier in the conversation so that we're more of a presence and authority for those people that are interested in those dates for our destination. What channel was that on? Well, usually, mostly, those are social-based channels. But now, as we begin to see the diversification of how the channels are being used more and more every day, how did that happen? What was the nascent, the inception of when this began to be a thing? When people begin talking about it, or referring to it, or asking about it, or we see it in the trending and it was becoming a topic of use. How do we transition that conversation? When did our ad campaigns start gaining traction? Did we place them at the right time? Did we drop the ads in at the time when the organic audience was ready to be expanded with the audience that's generated from the ads? Do we pick the proper channels to make sure our messages came across? Do we progressively engage with the audiences that we were able to define through the campaigns, so that we always were ahead of and current with the progression of interest, dialogue, and queries that made the conversions easier and better? Like, at first it was maybe we just want to make sure that people were aware that we were engaged with the event or dates in question. And then they engaged with our content of helpful things to do, not to misses, what have you. And then we transitioned that conversation. Well, you touched our ad, didn't do anything about it, you didn't book with us, which is understandable. We're in an early conversation. But then did you give us the next step, that workflow advertisement that I talk about so incessantly, of what's the next continuance of that message? Not the same ad, not the same message, not the repetitive frequency browbeating advertisement that most people do. But what's the next progression of ad? Oh yeah, there's my little bubbles. And from that, learn from this forensic timeline. And you take that, you say, how do we apply this for next year? When do we start this? What changes do we make? And you put that into your marketing model for next year. This is the things that we do, when we do it, where we do it, and how we do it for this span of demand, whether it's dates, event-driven, whatever it is, seasonality, whatever, for next year. And that goes into our timeline marketing program for next year. And the AI component of that, the future content authenticity development of those things, is very much about making sure that you have an open door engagement possibility to it. I go to your site that has the information about what you did and what you're offering, what you're collaborating about from the historical perspective and also future perspective of those dates. And I see opportunity for me to use a book, get future information, or find some means of keeping track of what it is you're doing. Now, let's cover some of the exceptions to this, at least one big one. I have nothing to offer right now. It was a unique event. It's a one-off. It's not coming back again. So I have this database of people that came to me during that time of year that I want to do something with. And I'm not going to run my skiing offer yet for 2027. Just not, right now I want them to know about 2026. I don't want to push 2027. I can make it available. I might even not know if I want to run it. Depends on how successful it is in 2026, this offer. If for any reason you have a promotion that is non-replicable or isn't going to be replicated, but it drove its own business for the time that you used it, one of the suggestions I had, which was kind of fun, was an Easter egg game. People love getting something that they're surprised by, or getting something that somebody else doesn't have, or making sure that they get something else somebody else did have, the FOMO factor, fear of missing out. Sometimes you can have fun where they go to your winter promotion that is for 26 and they look for 27. You do the Oopsie 404. Hey, you found a page we didn't want you to find. But because you did, say snowball 3 times in the text box below and we'll send you a present. And it's 10% off of whatever you want to offer, 5% off, or whatever incentive value. Really, that pleasant, I didn't get what I came here for, but you gave me something anyway, creates relationship values. You could have more fun. It's like, hey, you land on a page we didn't expect you to, whatever. But save this or do this and we get this for you, whatever. Create an immediate value relationship with them. Don't tether them saying, save this code and a year from now you can use it. Nobody's going to do that. What you can do is say, or sign up and we're going to give you something, or find the missing snowball in the beach scene or something. And, you can share 20% off of whatever you want to book with us for any time. Now you've converted a future interest into a current value. These are the things that keep the value relationship with the user going, rather than just the dead ending. Oh, they don't have anything offered, click go. Oh, 404, nothing's available, that page is dead, go. And more importantly, from an AI content perspective, it just didn't kill it. I have done an Easter egg page where the search comes back saying that offer is no longer available, but there seems to be a gift for having found it. It'll actually tell you in the AI a result of what it found. This link shows that if you do this, you get percentage off should you want to use it for anything else. Wow. So there are ways to manipulate how this works to the advantage of keeping the relationship with the user based on their interest with you. But the core of our conversation today is about extending and pushing the time frame that you're in perspective of content always forward farther than you may have historically done, to ensure that that content is discoverable and usable, not just from organic SEO indexing authoritative perspective, but also from an AI discovery usability perspective as well. So, thank you for the privilege of your time today. For those of you watching us on our TV channel, the Hospitality channel, thank you so much for catching us on our live TV channel. You can get it on any smart TV, Google, Amazon, Apple, Google, Samsung, Roku, whatever. If you're watching a simulcast on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube, or Twitch as a medium, thank you for doing that as well. Any comments, suggestions, engagements, topics, feedback, whatever you'd like, you can always reach me at lauren@hospitalitydigitalmarketing.com. For all of those that watch us around the world live, but also on our recorded version, which we put out at 11:30 a.m. every Wednesday morning, for Sydney, Australian time for our APAC friends, and London time for our European and Mideast friends. We do translate the replay in 11 languages, subtitled. I am looking at a cool app that will actually do my voice in an alternate language that you get to pick, which still working out it's about a half second done. It's a really cool thing, but anyway, see, AI is an amazing thing in that sense. But anyway, thank you so much for catching all of that. And if you are a hospitality marketer and want to join our peer level group, you can go to hospitalitymarketing.club and put your email in, and we'll reach out to you and validate that you are a current hospitality marketer and join our peer level group organization. Also, don't be remiss in saying Hospitality Radio, hospitalityradio.com. Linear programming covers all spectrum of topics related to hospitality. You can catch us there. We're in 39 countries for that, 209 countries for our TV station channel. And our app, Apple iOS and Google Play, which is the Hospitality Channel app. You can catch us there. And then our website that we have all of our content on, indexable and searchable, is hospitalitychannel.tv. So with that, again, my name is Lauren Gray. I thank you for the privilege of your time and look forward to talking to you all next week.